If we agree that a pumpkin is a fruit, because some scientists believe that it's actually a vegetable.
I'm sorry, Cherry, do you actually hate women?
What?
I thought you were ride or die, babe.
Y'all don't notice, but I am deep in my movie watching bag. And as such, I have gone to the movies every weekend this year. And because I make it my business to be in somebody's movie theater as often as possible, it don't take much for me to decide to buy a ticket to a movie I know nothing about. Meaning, the only thing I knew about Forbidden Fruits when I decided to get me and my friend Nigel tickets to see it was that Victoria Pedretti was in it. So even though the trailer failed to pique my or Nigel's interest in the slightest, I was confident that if there's one thing Victoria Love Queen Pedretti gonna do is act down. And that's all the assurance I needed to give the movie a chance, because ain't no way Victoria don't have better opportunities than ass movies. And if you're saying to yourself, what about Lily Reinhart? She's the star of the movie. Lily's biggest role and claim to fame is ass Riverdale. So I am sorry to say that her presence alone was not proof enough for me that the movie would be quality. Sorry. And Victoria Pedretti be trust, bitch. Sorry. That being said, while Riverdale might not be an indication of quality, I do think Lily Reinhart's time on Riverdale playing Dark Betty directly contributed to why she was so good in this movie. Lily Reinhart did do her big one in this movie. Not so big that Victoria's performance as Cherry wasn't still the main attraction, but her big one nonetheless. Lily was sinister but hilariously camp and gave us a truly memorable performance, complete with lines I'm sure girls much younger than me will be repeating for years to come. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back to going into Forbidden Fruits blind. I went for my girl Victoria, and because the movie was written, directed by, and starring women, and that's the kind of shit I like to support whenever I can. So I didn't know what to expect when I took my seat in the theater. And when the movie began, I still wasn't quite sure what the I was watching, but it was clear that all the young women around me did. And I thought that was nice. I hadn't expected to see so many people in the theater to see a movie I'd only just heard of and could tell had a very indie feel to it. But believe me when I tell y'all that the theater was full up of young women that you could tell were so excited to come to see this shit, and they were so happy. I genuinely think that my positive reception of this movie had a lot to do with how much all the young gals around me were enjoying themselves. When I tell you these young gals was getting their life at every single joke and campy ass thing that happened in the movie, call me soft, but it was genuinely cute seeing the movie so instantly resonate with gals younger than myself. As women, we all remember the first time that we saw a show, a movie, or a musical group that we just knew was made for us, that we loved and we knew we'd be with forever. You remember that energy? Them gals was in that movie happy as shit, like Child Me discovering Bring It On, or the Cheetah Girls, or B5. And I love that for them. Had it not been for the audience, I might have spent too much time at the outset stuck in the randomness, questioning what the I was watching or where this movie was gonna go. But because I could see how much faith they had in the movie and how much they obviously did know what the hell they came to see, I deferred to them like, okay, shit, let me go with it then. And I'm glad I did, because I had a good time. So now that I've seen the movie, I think the best way to describe Forbidden Fruits is Jennifer's body meets Mean Girls meets The Craft, but much campier than all of the above. And when I first wrote in this script that Forbidden Fruits is Jennifer's body meets Mean Girls meets The Craft, I had the nerve to think that was an original thought, only to stumble on an article arguing specifically that Forbidden Fruits should not be likened to those exact movies, which really confirmed for me that I was cooking with grease. Because if thousands of people are watching something and all feeling the spirit of the exact same three movies, I'm sorry, that's not us just trying to make fetch happen. It's happening, babes. But the person who wrote that article had another major gripe, which was that people were already calling Forbidden Fruits a cult classic. The author of that article took issue with that because they believe that a cult classic classification needs to be earned over time. Which is true. A cult classic refers to a film, book, or work of art that was not initially met with mainstream success or positive reception or critical acclaim or profitability upon its initial release, but over time became beloved by a fan base who came to appreciate it. Jennifer's Body is a cult classic. Catwoman is a cult classic. 13 Ghosts is a cult classic. Jennifer's Body, which was written by Diablo Cody, whose production house produced Forbidden Fruits, was a commercial flop that was dragged for filth by critics and audiences when it was released in 2009, but later developed a cult fandom who celebrated it as a feminist campy gem that they determined would have performed better had it been marketed to the female audience it was truly meant for, instead of to horny men who wanted to Megan Fox, which is a mistake Diablo Cody clearly learned from, because Forbidden Fruits was marketed to the women it was made for, and that's why it's had a much better early reception. Because 73% of the audience who showed up in theaters to watch Forbidden Fruits were women. Kind of like this channel. Did y'all know that the Illuminati Pop audience is 83% women? Shocker, I know. Jennifer Body's flop to classic trajectory was much like Catwoman's, which both flopped at the box office and critically wounded Halle Berry's career, only to go on and become beloved by camp-loving fans a decade later. 13 Ghosts also stunk up the box office, despite having traumatized the out of third grade me who'd been forced to watch it by my Auntie Kendra. But it flopped, like tens of millions of dollar flop. But it went on to become a horror staple by who actually appreciate nice things. So while Forbidden Fruits can't be a cult classic just yet because it was just released, I do think the potential is there. Although Forbidden Fruits has not been slammed or rejected by critics or audiences the way the previously mentioned movies were, something doesn't have to be hated then loved to be a cult classic. It can be a cult classic if it was underappreciated, underrated, or performed modestly at the box office at the time of its release, and went on to become popular, celebrated, or loved. For example, Paid in Full is a cult classic. Paid in Full was set up to fail by the studio that gave it a limited theatrical release and little to no marketing, which resulted in a modest opening at the box office. Paid in Full did not become the hit and staple in the Black community that it is until it hit DVD. It was the DVD sales that did it. Despite now being recognized as one of the greatest television shows of all time, at the time of its airing, audiences and award shows paid The Wire dust, which is why The Wire is a cult classic. Both Paid in Full and The Wire found their audiences and fandom later through DVD sales. Forbidden Fruits has received generally positive responses from both critics and audiences, sitting at about a 73% from both audiences and critics on Rotten Tomatoes. However, despite that positive reception, the movie's only grossed around $2 million at the box office. And seeing as the movie's budget was about the same $2 million, that is the exact kind of underperformance that leaves space for a movie to later grow and become a cult classic. But anyway, enough about how the movie got made and how it's performed. Let's talk about the movie itself, what I liked about it, and why I think it's going to demonstrate some staying power for a younger generation of girls and young women. But before I do that, let me tell you about this video's sponsor, FlexiSpot. Now, y'all already know that I have an amazing mattress, so it's only right that I get me an amazing bed for that amazing mattress, which is where FlexiSpot came in. FlexiSpot is a global brand focused on ergonomic and space-saving furniture. They're best known for standing desks and thoughtfully designed home essentials that combine functionality, quality, and modern style to create more comfortable living and working spaces. Like y'all know, my nice office chair from FlexiSpot that I already have. The FlexiSpot assembly is designed to be fast and intuitive. Thanks to the traditional joinery construction, the bed frame can be fully assembled in approximately 10 minutes without the use of tools. And I love that for me, on top of the fact that my new bed and my matching nightstands are everything. Just look at how beautiful it is. And not only are they beautiful, but they're built to last. The traditional Japanese joinery keeps the bed together with precision cut wood joints instead of many screws. No loosening screws, wobbling or creaking with movement screws. And lucky for y'all, not only can you have it too, but you can get a discount using my exclusive promo code for an instant discount. Check it out by clicking the link below and don't miss out. Use my exclusive code to get $30 off and free shipping. Thank you for sponsoring the video, FlexiSpot. Now let's get back to it. So the entirety of the movie takes place at a mall, specifically at a store called Free Eden within the mall, where 3 gals that are much like Mean Girls' The Plastics work. Those 3 gals are the movie's queen bees. Them bitches run the mall and they're proud of it, which is hilariously silly in 2026 when malls are dead and been dead. But these bitches run the mall and their names are Apple, Cherry, and Fig, which is not a coincidence, but a requirement for membership in their coven cult for bitches named after fruit. As indicated by being named after the Elmo of fruits, Apple, played by Lily Reinhart, is the head bitch in charge. And I love the decision to make her a ginger, not just because it's consistent with apples being red, but because when I think of trios of bad bitches run by the baddest of all the bitches, I think of my #1 bitch since day one, Blossom of the Powerpuff Girls. And Apple was running the exact kind of tight shit my bitch Blossom would have run if she decided to be an evil nut bitch witch who got enough magical powers to torment and kill bitches at the mall, but not to get herself a home or a better job. Anyway, Apple, Cherry, and Fig meet Pumpkin, and for no other reason than them bitches decided Pumpkin is a fruit, they invited Pumpkin into their coven, which meant she now had to work at Free Eden and follow all of Apple's rules, which constituted hating men, not men, and hexing men or any bitch she caught men too heavy. I know that's right. Yeah. Apple ass was so funny because that bitch despised so heavy. She had Fig hiding her boyfriend and Cherry running around trying to in secret so Apple don't hex them. And they know Apple was serious as shit about that hex because she made them hex the last bitch that got kicked out the coven, a gal named Pickle. But we could get back to Pickle. The movie is about the events that follow after Pumpkin joins the coven and begins spying on all the girls for reasons unknown to us for most of the movie's runtime. Through her spying, we learn that Apple is an evil dictator who hilariously weaponizes girl boss feminist language and talking points to control the other girls. Cherry in particular, who she berates and emotionally abuses throughout the film. But Apple's mistreatment of Cherry really lands because not only is the chemistry between Reinhardt and Pedretti perfect, Victoria Pedretti brings a depth and sadness to her performance as Cherry that elevates her beyond just feeling like this movie's Karen from Mean Girls. She ends up making you really feel for the character in a way that we might not have had she been played by another actress. And Lily Reinhardt is so funny in this role because she fully commits to the dark, sinister, and serious nature of Apple while delivering the funniest nut-ass lines throughout the movie.
I know yesterday was whack, but it's really not my fault because I Googled it and Mercury was in retrograde, so. Do you have sand in your ass crack? Because you are giving beach, babe.
I need y'all to understand how hard I laughed when Cherry confronts Apple like, you killed your dad! And Apple is like, so what? Bitch, I cackled. Oh, when Cherry tried to question whether pumpkin counts as a fruit during Pumpkin's initiation into the coven, and his bitch Apple was like, do you hate women? Oh my God, there you go trying to make shit about you again, nut-ass bitch. Apple was a real mean nut bitch, but that's exactly how bitches be giving it up. I shit you not. That's exactly how a gal was talking to me in my comments one time on that Joan and Ellis video when I miss and say Joan, the problem, Clayton was the problem in our relationship with Ellis. Blame that bitch for why I don't get no more girlfriends videos, by the way. But back to Pumpkin, who despite being the protagonist we see most of the movie's events through, is by far the least interesting and most disposable character in the movie, which I think is the fault of the actress's performance and not the material, because each of the other girls were very memorable. While Cherry and Apple are the true stars of the movie and deliver the most iconic lines of the movie, I still loved Fig. She is by no means chop liver. Alexandra Shipp does a great job making Fig feel like the cool, down-to-earth alt-black baddie you want to be friends with, or who you'd want to be in the group if you and your girlfriends were assigning each other to the roles. Whereas, I am sure neither me or anyone else would want to be Pumpkin, or give a f whether Pumpkin live or die, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Absolutely no shade at all to the actress, but I feel confident that Alexandra Tung's bland performance contributed to why I wasn't more invested in the mystery as to why Pumpkin infiltrated the coven or was seemingly investigating these bitches. But even had I cared about why she was doing it, I still wouldn't have had the answers. Just like we still don't have the answers for how any of them bitches became magical, created a coven, or why said magical coven was based in and around having fruit names, the mall, or this particular retail store, which is a part of the campy, unserious fun of it. So just go with it. It's better that way. Through Pumpkin's surveillance of the girls, we learn a few things. Apple weaponizes Cherry's mental health against her and convinced her she had a drinking problem that she needed to be dependent on Apple to fix. Fig is a normal, healthy, sane gal, secretly dating a nice man and trying to get into grad school so she could get from around these hoes without getting a hex put on her. The last gal to be kicked out the group was named Pickle. Pickle fell too deeply in love with her boyfriend for Apple's liking, so Apple put a hex on that gal man that caused the man to end up in the hospital half dead, and then sent Pickle crazy, till when you look, Pickle jump off the top floor of the mall and take herself out the game completely. Apple lives in her car in the mall's parking garage, and she has no family, because according to Cherry, Apple killed her father because he was a piece of shit.
Honestly, work.
Which is Apple's villain origin story and why she hates men. We find this information out when Cherry reveals it to Pumpkin, which feels like a good place for me to point out that while Cherry seemed most like Mean Girls' Karen to the naked eye, in that she was a ditzy blonde, she was actually a combination of Karen and Gretchen, because like Gretchen, despite being the closest to the queen bee, she was treated the worst, and so desperate for validation from the head bitch in charge that when she didn't get it, she essentially had a nervous breakdown and revealed the queen bee's secret. In Mean Girls, when Gretchen gets jealous of Katie and tired of Regina's abuse, she unravels and reveals to Katie that Regina was cheating on Aaron. In Forbidden Fruits, when Cherry gets jealous of Pumpkin and tired of Apple's abuse, she unravels and reveals that Apple killed her father. And I like that. And I like that. But Apple killing her father isn't only her villain origin story. It's also the thing that truly sends the movie into overdrive. I say truly, because shit had already hit the fan before that, after Apple tried to sacrifice Cherry's cat and put a hex on Fig's boyfriend, which rightfully causes Fig to bug out and tell these bitches about their ass and that her name ain't even Fig, because why would her mother name her some silly shit like that? Which caused Cherry to snap and hit Fig's boyfriend in the face with an axe. So Fig tell these bitches that she got into grad school and they could go themselves before leaving to chase after her maimed boyfriend, who just barely survived his attempted murder by Cherry Nutass and of course dumped her ass. But once Fig and Pumpkin depart, Cherry and Apple get into a huge fight. Cherry finally stands up for herself, tells Apple she's a wicked abusive bitch, and calls out for killing her daddy, which, like I told y'all, Apple don't give a about. But what Apple does give a about is making sure bitches know who the they talking to. So she runs down on Cherry. At this point, there's a hurricane or something going on outside, and these four silly bitches are all trapped in the mall at night after closing hours. So Apple chasing Cherry around the mall until Cherry runs onto the escalator, at which point her heel gets stuck and the bottom of the escalator opens up Final Destination style. Because remember, I tell you all, Apple is evil, but she doing divine shit. Who knows? So this wicked evil bitch Apple lets my girl Cherry get clapped. And not only was I sick already, y'all killed my bitch, but moments later, for no reason at all, some shit dropped from the sky as a result of the weather outside and kills my girl Fig too. When she just got into grad school. Man, look here, y'all know what we have to do with. Aaron, run the song.
I really miss my nigga. I really miss my nigga. White people you can sing it to, just change that into a W. Miss my wigger.
Once Cherry and Fig are dead, all that's left is for Apple and Pumpkin to have their showdown. So you know Apple lock in on sending her ass back to God too. And it's at that point that Pumpkin dumbass reveals her true identity to Apple and why she been plotting on her. Like we or Apple give a We find out that Pumpkin is Apple's half-sister. Dum-da-da-dum! And Pumpkin has been trying to get evidence that Apple killed her father, because the same man who was a piece of shit father to Apple was a great father to Pumpkin, because that's really how be. So Apple tried to tell this guy what a piece of shit their daddy was, and Pumpkin just keep hollering in Apple head when you already know Apple don't care nothing about that. So you know what she had to do. That's right. She had to pack Pumpkin the up. Yup. Choke that ass out. And Apple might be a man-hating, evil, hypocrite bitch and abuser of women, but you can't call her a convict, because all my bitch do is get away with murder. Sent 3 bitches to God, then fled to another state and found her a new job and a new coven, all before washing their blood off. That's my kind of villain. A winner. All in all, this movie is not perfect or amazing by any means, but it was a really fun watch. It's just sure to have a good time watching with your friends. And Pumpkin definitely earned getting ragtagged the way she did. But run the song one time for the one time, Aaron.
I really miss my nigga. I really miss my nigga. White people you can sing it to, just change that into a W. Miss my wigger.
If you enjoyed the video you just watched, it's your lucky day, because you just found it on one of 7 channels inside my Olurinati-verse. Subscribe to Olurinati, my flagship channel, where you'll find my magnum opuses like If Pretty is a Privilege, Ugly is a Curse, How This Didn't Age Well Destroyed Media Literacy, How Men Become Aziz Ansari, and more. Subscribe to Olurinati Pop for my TV and film essays on shows like How I Met Your Mother, Sex and the City, Desperate Housewives, You, Euphoria, Insecure, and so many more. You can also join Olurinati Pop on Patreon to watch all of my YouTube videos uncensored. Subscribe to Olurinati Bites for short, serious, and nuanced commentary on whatever the internet is spiraling about. Subscribe to Olay and Chill if you're trying to laugh and chill while unpacking the latest TikTok chaos. Subscribe to Olurinati Politics for sharp breakdowns of the political moments shaping our lives right now. Subscribe to Olurinati Extras for music commentary and industry deep dives. Subscribe to Olay and Friends to watch your favorite Black thinkers and creators dissect the culture. Subscribe to any or all the channels in the Olurinati-verse that speak to you, and I'll see you there. And you can also follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky at Olurinati. And you can also follow Olurinati Pop and Olay and Chill on Instagram and TikTok so you never miss a thing. If you enjoyed this video, it's your lucky day, because there's way more where this came from. Click the video being recommended to you right now and subscribe to me so you don't miss future videos.